8.4 is on special rate triangles. This time we're going to go over the 30, 60, 90 triangles. So our objective again is to calculate the side lengths of a special rate triangle using the triangle ratios of the side lengths. Before we start that, we're going to work with some radicals. When you multiply two radicals together, so for example, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, you are going to put both of them underneath the same square root sign and multiply them together. In this case, because they're both the same, we can simplify it and bring them both outside the square root sign to become 3. Same thing happens in example 2. We have 5 times the square root of 3 times the square root of 3. So we'll end up with 5 times the square root of 3 times 3. We have our group of 2, so this is going to change to just 5 times 3, and that will be 15. Same thing for number 3. We're going to have 7 times the square root of 2 times 2 because of those two square roots being multiplied together. And this will become 7 times 2 because of that group of 2 underneath the square root sign. And then our answer will become 14. So that was just a quick review on multiplying with radicals. That's going to help you through some of the problems today. So for this, we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, and the hypotenuse in a 30, 60, 90 triangle is always twice as long as the shorter leg, and the longer leg is the square root of 3 times the shorter leg. So we're going to draw an example. We have a 30, 60, 90 triangle here. The short leg is always opposite of the 30-degree angle. The long leg will be opposite of the 60, and the hypotenuse is always opposite of that right angle. So to abbreviate these, we're going to use for short leg, we're going to use SL. For the long leg, we're going to use LL. And for hypotenuse, we're going to use HYP, which we already know that one. So just like the 45, 45, 90 triangle, we have a few equations that we're going to want to memorize. The first one is that the long leg is going to be equal to the short leg times the square root of 3. And that's just a number that we're going to be given because the longer leg is always going to be the square root of 3 times as long as the short leg. So that's where we get that formula from. Then the hypotenuse is going to be equal to 2 times the short leg. And again, we get that because the hypotenuse is twice as long as the short leg in a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So these two formulas are what you are going to want to have memorized for the 30, 60, 90 triangle for quizzes and tests. Using that information, we are going to complete example 1. We're going to find the values of x and y, and we're going to write our answers in simplest radical form. So starting off with, we're going to label the sides. So the short leg is always opposite the 30-degree angle. So when we find that 30-degree angle, the side opposite is going to be my short leg. The long leg is going to be opposite of the 60-degree angle. And in this example, that'll be 8, and our hypotenuse is y. Now that we have all of the sides labeled, we can go ahead and use our two formulas to find any missing lengths that we need. So if we start with our longer leg formula, we know our longer leg is 8 equals our short leg is x times the square root of 3. This gives us enough information to solve for x. And again, they want us to give our answers in simplified radical form. So we're not going to type this into our calculators. But we are going to rationalize our answers because we can't have that square root in the denominator. So for this, we're going to end up with 8 square roots of 3 over 3. And that will equal x. Now we can use that information to figure out what our hypotenuse is. So our hypotenuse is represented by y. We already labeled that. And we're going to take 2 times the short leg, which we just found was 8 square roots of 3 over 3. When you have a whole number being multiplied by a fraction, remember you want to change it into a fraction. So the 2 we're going to put over 1, so we have a fraction times a fraction. And you're just going to multiply straight across. So for this, you're going to take 2 times 8, which is 16 square roots of 3, all over 1 times 3, which is 3. So it's very similar to the 45, 45, 90, where we have a formula, we set up the information we know, and then solve for our variables. Now let's look at example 2. You make a guitar pick that resembles an equilateral triangle with side lengths of 32 millimeters. So remember, equilateral means all sides are congruent. What is the approximate height of the pick? And right here, approximate is the key word. If it tells you that, approximate, estimate, or about, you can round your answer. That is basically giving you permission to round your answer. So let's go ahead and start plugging in what we know. But in order to do that, we need a picture. So for this, we are looking for the height, which the height of an equilateral triangle is the altitude and also the median. So it cuts that third side in half. So we know the outside is 32, 32, and the bottom was cut in half because of that altitude, which is making the height. And that's going to give us 16 for both of them. Now we can figure out what the height is using our special right triangles. So in an equilateral triangle, all three sides, or all three angles, are 60 degrees because they're equal. This median is also an angle bisector, which cuts that angle in half, which means we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle in here. Now we can use that information to find the height of our triangle. If it's helpful, you can draw the triangle separately over here. We know the bottom is 16 and the hypotenuse is 32. Because we know the top angle is 30, this lower side is going to be our short leg, and we are going to be looking for our long leg, which is going to represent the height. That wasn't a very good H. Let's do that. So right now we're looking for the height. Using our equation, we're going to want to use the one for the longer leg, which is equal to the short leg times the square root of 3. The longer leg is represented by h. The short leg was 16 times the square root of 3. So our height is 16 square roots of 3. If you gave an exact answer, that will give you full credit on this problem. But because it says approximate, we can just type this into our calculator to get about 27.7. So both of these answers would be accepted for full credit on a quiz or a test. Only if it has the words approximate though. If it doesn't say that, then you have to give the exact answer. Okay, so using that information, why don't you go ahead and try examples 3 and 4 on your own, and then press play to see if you got the correct answers. All right, so looking at this information, we are just looking for the value of x. So we have the shorter leg and we're looking for the longer leg. The equation for the longer leg is the short leg times the square root of 3. Now that we have that information, we're going to plug in what we know. The longer leg is represented by x. The short leg is 2 square roots of 3. And we're going to multiply that by the square root of 3. So remember, we did practice this where we had the square root being multiplied. Because you have that group of 2, this changes to 2 times 3, which equals 6. I know the problem didn't ask for it, but if you were asked to find the hypotenuse, that is equal to 2 times the short leg. So our hypotenuse, I'm going to label that y, is going to be equal to 2 times 2 square roots of 3. And when you have a number times a number with a radical, you are just going to multiply the two numbers up front. So this is going to become 4 square roots of 3, and that would be the length of the hypotenuse. And I know I didn't ask for that, but it is good practice to find that length as well. For example 4, we are going to be finding the value of h. And this is a equilateral triangle on the outside, and you can tell that because all of the side lengths together are 12. So that makes this the altitude, which means it cut that angle in half, making it 30 and our 60. This allows us to do our special right triangles. Remember, you do want to be careful to make sure you're labeling the longer leg and the shorter leg correctly so you don't get confused about which one is which. So our equation for the longer leg, again, is the short leg times the square root of 3. So our longer leg is represented by h. Our short leg was 6 times the square root of 3. So our height for this is just going to be 6 square roots of 3. This one didn't say approximate on it, so I'm just going to leave it as an exact answer. So again, you want to look for those keywords. If it says approximate, then it's okay to round your answer. If it doesn't, always give the exact answer. All right. So those are all the notes on our 30, 60, 90 triangles. If you have any questions, just let me know.